Welcome to the next edition of the Pack Size podcast. My name's Tyler Sharp. I'm on our global product management team, and I'm joined today by Oliver, who leads our solutions engineering team in Europe. Is that right, Oliver?
Hey, Tyler. Yes. So my name's Oliver Gardiner. I'm the European Solution Manager, but essentially leading a team of talented solution engineers here in Europe who help our customers meet their goals with right-sized packaging automation. But I think this podcast is interesting. It creates an interesting dynamic between you and I, you being in the US and me in Europe. So let's see how we get on.
Yeah. The topic for today is the hidden costs of oversized packaging. So just to start, Oliver, I'm curious what are the key factors that you see that drive companies primarily to right sizing their packaging?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question, but from my experience, it's rarely one driver. So usually it's a single trigger, but it's followed by multiple realizations, let's say. But it's always an interesting scope because you peel back the layers of an operation, you discover more. I mean, most operations are different in one way or another, which keeps things interesting, but all in all, they rhyme essentially. I would say one of the main drivers is labor that comes to my mind, and whether that's essentially the cost. So here in Europe, it's been increasing year on year, and even in some cases, companies really struggle to recruit altogether. So they typically go down, let's say, the agency staff route. So these are all typical challenges that we find. I mean, associated hidden cost that relates to labor is that, in my experience, when some of our customers they go down the right sizing route, they typically find an increase in staff retention as well, which is great to see. So obviously, automation brings a reduction in the strain to their staff, and the outcome is typically very positive within the work environment. So, I mean, this is what I'm typically seeing as most of the drivers. Um, I think regulation is increasingly coming in the spotlight as well with the EPR, where essentially companies are penalized with excessive packaging. And I think that what that creates is a lot of companies are trying to position themselves for the future. So, I mean, is this typically what you find in the US, Tyler? Is that what you're seeing as well, or?
Yeah, similar. I'd say some nuances there. We don't have as much regulation, I would say, driving right size packaging. We do have dimensional weight from carriers primarily is a big driver over here. That's maybe a little bit different than Europe, which is just where the larger a package gets, the more it costs. So kind of a different approach, but similar goal, I think, in mind. So yeah, but labor's another big one, like you said. So yeah, pretty similar.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You guys have got more space than us as well, so it's space is always a constraint here.
Yeah, zooming in a little bit, I guess, to a warehouse. Is there something about oversized packaging that you found that makes traditional stations, less efficient than if you can right size your packaging?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, right size or oversized packaging really begins at the pack stations you alluded there. When an operator, needs to compile a fixed size box together, there's an array of obviously decisions that need to be made, hand movements, judgments on the size of those boxes, from building them and applying void fill as well. I mean, what's interesting is that the void is, it takes a few seconds to place inside a box, but you times that by thousands of orders, and essentially it's definitely a drag on throughput. More rare is typically more taping, sealing, etc., and it compounds over time. But what I find also is that when businesses really want to scale and increase, That's very, very hard to do that with fixed size boxes. And as I said earlier, in Europe, warehouse space is hard to come by. It's very, very costly. So you want to utilize that square meterage of space as much as you can. And going down the road of right sizing and automation is typically how you get to that position.
Yeah, I something else I've noticed too. Typically, you'll have the people that design the pack station. They'll set up the proper work instructions for operators, right? They'll say this is how you use the void fill. This is how much tape you should be using. All these things. This is how you should select the box size. But then, if you observe operators in their natural environment, they tend to do whatever path of least resistance, right? So if it's looking like that size might not fit, I'm going to go to the bigger one just in case, and then they grab the bigger box, and then they either underfill or overfill the void fill, and then they maybe use too much or too little tape.
It's definitely a good point. And if you don't put that void fill in the correct place or enough of it, then you just essentially create movement inside the box, and that's when you get damages, etc. So it's very, very hard to control, but it is a very good point. Yeah, absolutely.
What other areas in the warehouse have you seen that lead to maybe some hidden costs, like operational expenses, things like that? Anything else, or is it largely just pack stations where you see?
There's an array of situations that it causes issues there. I mean, with fixed size boxes, and especially in the e-com industry, which a lot of my experience is in e-com, that what I find is that year on year, the SKU ranges changes, the dynamic in terms of the box sizes, the order profiles, etc., changes, and it's really, really difficult to match that with fixed size boxes. You typically find that the businesses will have different product ranges, and they try and fit them in the old boxes that they used before, and it really shows at peak, and that's the critical time of year where you need to perform. And essentially, in my opinion, that creates a ripple effect. And what's interesting is that those inefficiencies, they rarely stay at the pack bench. They essentially travel through the operation downstream, which is interesting. Extra air inside a box will take up warehouse space, pallet space. Trailer fill is not as good. But when businesses transition to right sizing, the operation essentially becomes a lot more predictable, especially in e-com. Predictability in an unpredictable kind of space, which is, considering the order profiles, is what businesses need. So yeah, scalability is very difficult with right sizing. But for you guys in the US, you've got plenty of experience, I think, as well, Tyler, in factory spaces and that sort of industry. I mean, what are you typically finding in that industry? Something similar to this, or?
Yeah, I'd say one of the big areas for at least in the U.S. that I've seen kind of outside of the e-commerce space is in pallet locations, right? So especially if a customer is using a bunch of different box styles or box sizes to accommodate their different products and SKU mix, they may have 100 different pallet locations for boxes. So I guess that's not oversized packaging. That's maybe more of the benefit on the on-demand side of things. But that's largely where I see kind of the biggest impact to the on-demand space.
Yeah, well, you right sizing, you can fit more on a pallet, of course.
Curious if in Europe have had any conversations with some of the carriers like DHL or anyone, and do they have any hidden costs, or is there anything that we know about the carriers and their appetite to get to right size packaging?
I always come back to ecom, but when when you go to right sizing, you're essentially reducing air within the box. The profile of the box decreases. But obviously, the underlying principle behind a carrier is to save space in a vehicle. And when you right size, you get more parcels per truck. It's better density, less damages, so less returns, fewer vehicles, all that sort of thing. But essentially, the shipper and the carrier, in my opinion, they want the same thing, and the same thing being a more efficient carrier network, which essentially, in my eyes, is a win-win. And of course, with going back to regulations, this is becoming more critical as well. And you mentioned earlier that you've got volumetric weights in the US. So for you guys, this is going to be absolutely critical, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it directly affects the bottom line for sure.
Absolutely. The other thing that I find really interesting, and there's plenty of examples that I've had experience with in Europe, is that one of the benefits, obviously we touched on this, is that when you go to a platform like pack size offers, you're reducing the size of the box, but essentially that solution, it comes with a whole array of data. And when you have that data to understand, what size boxes, what the weights of those parcels are each time that you're sending out, although volumetric weights isn't that common here in Europe, it gives you a way that you can negotiate with your carrier. You've got the data to back up what you're actually sending through the network. And we've had many examples of customers that have utilized the power of that data to get the most out, and as you say, is reducing the bottom line, which is critical.
Well, any other questions or comments you want to make, Oliver?
Not really from my side. I think hidden costs there, we've touched on those in terms of what we've seen and had experience with. It's been really interesting to understand your perspective in the US, and certainly with factory space and how that works in an operation as well. So, I really hope that this has been beneficial for everybody watching, and I appreciate everybody's time.
Yeah, thank you.